Hello, welcome to this new video. In this video I have a sketchbook too, and I actually have two sketchbook tours. So I'm going to show you the inside of two of my sketchbooks. I finish a sketchbook like this in every 3 to 4 months. I always write down the starting date, but I tend to forget the ending date, so that's a bit annoying, but it started in January, so quite some time ago now. And here you can see the first page. I really like the color scheme of this page. I used watercolors and soft pastel pencils. I like the sweet looking monster and the monkey. Here I swatched some of my favorite colors in that area, and a lot of these are by Schmincke, super granulating colors. Here I draw cats, flowers, and houses. I always draw these subjects. And then my sweet cat started to join in, and he also wanted to be in the video. So I thought, why not put him in the video? And yeah, here I am using oil pastels, some watercolors, messy pages. I think these kind of pages are just part of making a sketchbook. You need a place to just be messy, experiment with color, experiment with texture, experiment with materials. So yeah, I use my sketchbook a lot for that matter, and I don't really mind that it gets super messy. My sketchbook is a very vulnerable place where I don't want to create beautiful stuff. I just want to explore. I just want to experiment. So it doesn't really matter how well everything turns out, because it's not my focus point. My focus point is experimenting and making it part of my art journey. So also this page with just some acrylic paint, it is something that is included in my sketchbook, and that is how I like to use my sketchbooks, because I know from making art for 2 years now that experimenting, making a mess is part of my process. And I know that when I have a place to just be messy, create texture, and not really think about color, composition, but just doodle and do stuff, it really improves my art journey in the long run. And here I'm using some alcohol markers. I don't really use alcohol markers that much, but sometimes I like to use them. The downside to them is that they transfer to the back of the page. Here I have drawn some faces. And here I'm drawing faces in combination with flowers, and I noticed that I don't only make them in the same color palette, but also just sort of vibe that the flowers and the person sort of communicates is the same with the flower and the person. So that's quite funny to see. And these illustrations are with watercolor and using new colors, colored pencils on top of them. A great way to fill your sketchbook is creating pages with pairs. It doesn't only sort of push your creativity because you are going to try and make a lot of the same thing like flowers or leaves, but it also sort of creates a library of your style. So now when I go out and paint flowers or I go out and paint leaves, I can go back in my sketchbook, look at the page with all of the different leaves, and get out of my usual leaf style or pick 2 things or 3 things that I really enjoy to create an art piece. And it really also helps you to find your style. Some very messy pages that I don't think are good necessarily, but it's just my place to create. Creating people, also a fun thing to do. Sometimes I use both pages, sometimes I just use one, and it's all fine with me. These sketchbooks are relatively cheap, and that is why I always get them again, because I don't feel the pressure to fill my beautiful, expensive, amazing watercolor paper sketchbook I just have this art creation sketchbook with sketchbook paper that can take quite a lot of watercolor, so it works and it's good enough. But it's not so expensive that I feel pressure to create a beautiful filled sketchbook. And I know for some people this is not a problem and it really works for them and for their art process. And I want to sort of highlight that everyone is different and creates in different ways, and it's about finding your own process and finding your own style. But for me, I need a place to just be messy, don't think too much, and just create. And I found that these inexpensive sketchbooks help me to sort of lower the pressure and just go out and start drawing without having those voices in my head like, ooh, it needs to be a perfect sketchbook, or it needs to be, I need to fill this very Instagrammable, because otherwise it's not really worth my time and money. But now I think, no, it doesn't really matter. I just want to create. I know that in the long run, it helps me to get better at art. You can also use your sketchbook for creating thumbnails. What I see is sort of trend in my sketchbook when it comes to the end. I sort of don't really care so much anymore, and I just want to finish the sketchbook and get a new sketchbook and start all over again, because it feels like I have grown so much that this sketchbook doesn't really fit my style anymore. So I tend to just finish sketchbooks very quickly, or 2 or 3 pages don't really finish. But yeah, this sketchbook I finished all the way. Which brings me to my second sketchbook. And this sketchbook I filled actually yesterday, and when I filmed this footage, I didn't finish the sketchbook yet, but I promise you that the other pages that are new in the sketchbook, I will also include at the end. So you also get of this sketchbook a full tour. So let's dive right into this sketchbook. I started August 2020 and I finished it on the last day of October. So 3 months. I did 3 months for this sketchbook, and it's quite a messy sketchbook, and I did really enjoy filling this particular sketchbook. So let's dive right in. This is the first thing that I made, and it was on holiday. Sometimes it can be quite scary to break in your sketchbook, so doing a swatching page like this can really help you to break in and start. Sometimes I intentionally make a messy page for my first page, so sort of the tone is set for the other pages in the sketchbook. Here are all the sketches that I did on holiday in France, and that is fun because now when I look at this sketchbook, it's not also only a documentation of my art process, but it's also a reminder of where I've been in my life. So that's quite exciting. Here I did some quick swatches with my Ecoline brush pens, colored pencils, and Tombow brush pens. And I did this sketch while listening to a sleeping podcast. I've been sort of redesigning my day like morning to evening routine, and I've been trying to improve my sleep. And an important thing to sleeping better is winding down at a earlier time than going to bed. So I try to wind down like an hour before I go to bed. And I've been listening to this podcast, Nothing Really Happens, and it's a sleeping podcast. And for me, just listening and sitting is not really my cup of tea, because I'm quite a movable person and I like to do things with my hands and do things with my mind. So just sitting and listening can be quite hard. So what I'd like to do is just get my podcast and start, dim the lights at my desk and sketch what I was listening to in the podcast. So that is a tip for you if you're also trying to improve your sleep, or if you like sometimes don't have inspiration what to draw, you can listen to a podcast and just draw what you hear in the podcast. It also works with audiobooks. You can also do it with television, of course, but then you have a visual, and sometimes it's great to just only have the audio and your own imagination. A messy bear, another messy page. Oh, these are stuck together, and these are some acrylic paint swatches. Here is a landscape. I really enjoy the texture of this landscape and the colors. Yeah, it's fun. I've been obsessing over Rembrandt soft pastels. I have these muted color set or dark color set, and it makes the most beautiful sky colors. Also, for this one, I've been using neo pastels and soft pastels and color pencils, and this is a dragon, and it's quite messy, but it was really fun to make. And I used this amazing color of the Unison colored pencil. It's a green 29 color. Again, drawing with watercolor, but also using soft pastels for the sky. I just love the texture that it makes. I got some new soft pastels. Also swatches of new art supplies. I've been doubting to get sort of like a swatch book. But I tend to just do my swatches of new art supplies in these sketchbooks. I don't like that one, but I do like this one. And I use soft pastels and then acrylic for the sky. I don't really use acrylic in my sketchbook that much because it's quite a messy medium in comparison to watercolor and gouache. But I do like the texture that it created. Drawing flowers, and here I'm using my choosing keeping watercolors that I got in September for my birthday. So quite a lot of choosing keeping art supplies in here. Been drawing mermaids. I love mermaids. I think I love mermaids and witches so much. I've been loving those two since I was a child. So I like mermaid stories. Not necessarily like Disney mermaid stories, but just mermaid stories in general. I think it's such a fun thing to fantasize about what the world in the sea would look like if there were some kind of humans interacting there. Another page of drawing pears, so a collection of trees. And here is the latest piece that I made for Inktober. I started Inktober in October, but didn't really finish it. And here is a doodle page. These kind of pages are one of my favorite pages to create in sketchbooks. Here I use some gouache. Another page using gouache. I like to use gouache. Painting chickens. This is a page that I did in ink to paint something over it, but never really did. Here I painted 2 dogs. I want to improve my dogs because I think my cats are quite okay, but my dogs aren't so good yet. And I really like to draw animals, so improving dogs is important to me. I got a book filled with dog illustrations from the thrift store, which really helps me to improve my dogs. Here I've been swatching a color wheel because I got a porcelain palette. You can see it in this video, and it's above, somewhere above in the video. You can see that I got a porcelain palette and I filled it with all sorts of beautiful watercolors. And after that, I also created art in this sketchbook using my color wheel. And I discovered that it got more colorful, which I thought was very interesting. And here is the first page that I did using my porcelain palette to mix all of these beautiful bright colors. I like color. I use quite a lot of different colors in my work, even though I think that the colors are in some way similar to each other. And I can't really put the finger on it, but yeah, I like colors. Here I am painting a little frog jumping on the page, and then some animals. So as I said in the beginning, I actually finished this sketchbook over a few days later after filming the video, so I thought I should include the last pages as well. Some messy stuff. I like to draw mushrooms so much. This is the season for mushrooms. There are so much mushrooms right now outside here, and I love it. Using Google, like the random Google Street View, to create these landscapes. A lot of texture. A random tree. A sketch. So landscapes, again, a lot of texture. Using Google again. A mushroom person. This is not really successful, but hey. And I think this is the last page, and I've been drawing turtles because they are so cute. I really like turtles. Using watercolors, neocolors. Yeah, those are the last pages in the sketchbook. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this sketchbook tour. Let me know in the comments down below how you use the sketchbook and if you use the sketchbook. And I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And see you soon. I like to draw mushrooms so much. This is the season for mushrooms. There are so much mushrooms right now outside here, and I love it. Using Google, like the random Google Street View, to create these landscapes. A lot of texture. A random tree. A sketch. So landscapes, again, a lot of texture. Using Google again. A mushroom person. This is not really successful, but hey. And I think this is the last page, And I've been drawing turtles because they are so cute. I really like turtles. Using watercolors, neocolors. Yeah, those are the last pages in the sketchbook.